The last Father's Day. Father's Day had always been a complicated affair for Alex. Growing up in a home where love was measured in silences and subtle glances, he never learned to expect much fanfare. When he became a father himself, he held onto a quiet hope that things might be different, that he might feel seen, appreciated, maybe even celebrated. This particular Father's Day began like any other Sunday. The morning sun filtered softly through the curtains as Alex brewed his coffee, his daughter Ellie still asleep upstairs. His wife, Marissa, had been distant lately, their conversations reduced to perfunctory exchanges about bills, schedules, and Ellie's school projects. But Alex, ever the optimist, thought perhaps today would be a chance to bridge the growing gap. By mid-morning, Ellie had bounced downstairs with a handmade card. Crayon hearts and a stick figure family adorned the front, and inside, in wobbly letters, it read, "I love you, Daddy. You're my hero." His heart swelled. It was the kind of affirmation he didn't know he needed until it was there, clutched in his hands. He hugged Ellie tightly, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Thank you, sweetheart. This means everything to me." Marissa appeared then, a cool smile on her lips, holding a small box. For a moment, Alex allowed himself to believe. Perhaps she'd planned something thoughtful after all. "Open it," she said, her tone strangely detached. Inside the box was a tie. Not just any tie. A garish, neon monstrosity with a pattern of cartoonish golf clubs. Alex didn't play golf. He looked up confused. "Thank you. But I don't—" "Oh, come on," Marissa interrupted, her voice laced with derision. "It's a joke. You're always going on about how you're too busy to have hobbies. Maybe now you'll have something to wear when you—" "Finally! Get one." The words stung more than he expected. He glanced at Ellie, who looked from her mother to her father with wide, uncertain eyes. I don't know what to say," Alex managed, his voice tight. "Say thank you," Marissa said, her smile now a smirk. He forced a smile for Ellie's sake and muttered, "Thank you." The rest of the day unraveled in much the same vein. Marissa made cutting remarks at lunch about his dad bod, joked in front of her friends during a video call that he was practically a second child, and dismissed his attempts to spend quality time together as clingy. By the evening, Alex sat alone in the living room, the tie draped over the arm of the couch like a badge of humiliation. Marissa had gone to bed without a word, leaving him to sift through the wreckage of the day. It wasn't just about the tie, or the remarks. It was the pattern, months, years even, of being dismissed, belittled, and rendered invisible. Alex looked at Ellie's card again, the words, "You're my hero," catching in his throat. He couldn't bear the thought of her. Growing up and believing that this was what love looked like, the decision came not as a thunderclap, but as a quiet resolve. He realized that staying in a marriage where respect had long since eroded wasn't just unfair to him, it was unfair to Ellie. She deserved to see her father as a man who valued himself enough to demand kindness, even from those closest to him. The next morning, Alex sat Marissa down. "I think we need to talk," he began, his voice steady. She looked up from her phone, her expression unreadable. "About what?" "About us," he said, his gaze unwavering. "About how this isn't working anymore." For the first time in years, Alex spoke his truth without fear of how it would be received. He laid it all out, the hurt, the loneliness, the desire for a partnership built on mutual respect. Marissa listened in silence, her defenses flickering, on and off like a faulty light. By the end of the conversation, the weight that had settled on Alex's chest for so long began to lift. The divorce wasn't easy. It never is. But as the weeks turned into months, Alex found himself again. He discovered new hobbies, reconnected with old friends, and became the father he always wanted to be for Ellie, present, engaged, and whole. On the next Father's Day, Ellie handed him another handmade card. This one had a rainbow on the front, and inside she'd written, "Thank you for being my hero. I love you." And for the first time in years, Alex felt like a hero, not just to his daughter, but to himself. In the months that followed, Alex's life became an exercise in rediscovery. At first, the silence of his new apartment was jarring. The absence of Marissa's sharp remarks and the hum of a household built on routines left a vacuum that seemed impossible to fill. But slowly, that silence became something else. A space for healing, a canvas on which he could sketch the outlines of the man he once was and the man he wanted to become. Ellie adjusted to the new arrangement with a resilience Alex admired. She spent half her time with him and the other half with Marissa, though the transition wasn't without its challenges. One evening, while coloring at the dining table, she asked, "Daddy, why don't you and Mommy love each other anymore?" Alex took a deep breath, kneeling down beside her. "Ellie, love is a tricky thing. Sometimes people change, and the way they show love to each other changes too. But one thing will never change. I will always love you no matter what." Ellie nodded solemnly, her small hands clasping his. "I love you too, Daddy." Her words anchored him through the toughest days. They were a reminder that no matter how turbulent the journey, he had made the right choice for both of them. A new chapter, Alex threw himself into fatherhood with renewed purpose. He learned to braid Ellie's hair for school, attended every soccer game, and even signed up for a baking class because she wanted to make fancy cupcakes for her next birthday. Each small victory felt monumental, like reclaiming pieces of a life that had slipped away during the years of his marriage. He also began to nurture parts of himself that had been neglected. A dusty guitar in the corner of the apartment became his companion in quiet moments, its strings offering melodies of solace and expression. He started running in the mornings, finding clarity in the rhythm of his steps and the crisp dawn air. And for the first time in years, he made time for friends, people who reminded him of the laughter and camaraderie he had almost forgotten. As the months turned into a year, Alex noticed something remarkable. The bitterness that had once defined his relationship with Marissa began to soften. Their co-parenting exchanges, once fraught with tension, grew more amicable. He didn't harbor illusions of rekindling their relationship, but he found peace in the civility they could now share for Ellie's sake. The next Father's Day. The following year, Father's Day arrived with a quiet anticipation. Alex had no grand expectations, but he looked forward to spending the day with Ellie. They planned a picnic in the park, complete with sandwiches, homemade lemonade, and a soccer ball she insisted on bringing. When Ellie handed him her card that morning, he couldn't help but smile. This year's creation featured a superhero with a cape and a crown. Inside, she'd written, "To the best dad ever, you're my king. Love, Ellie." Alex's throat tightened as he read the words. "Ellie, this is amazing. Thank you so much." "You like it?" she asked, beaming. "I love it," he said, pulling her into a hug. "It's perfect." As they sat on the picnic blanket later that day, Ellie ran ahead to chase a butterfly, her laughter ringing through the air. Alex watched her, a warm breeze carrying the scent of freshly cut grass and wildflowers. He realized that for the first time in years, he felt free. Free from the weight of unspoken grievances, free to embrace the life he had built, and free to dream of a future filled with possibility. That evening, after Ellie had fallen asleep, Alex found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. The pain of his marriage's end had been real, but so too was the growth that had come from it. He had learned to value himself, to prioritize kindness and respect, and to be the kind of father Ellie could look up to. And as he sat on the couch, the glow of the moonlight spilling through the window, Alex realized something else. This was not the end of his story. It was only the beginning. The winds of change over time. Alex's relationship with Sophia deepened, not through grand gestures, but through the quiet, meaningful moments they shared. There was a peaceful rhythm to their connection. She never rushed him, understanding that his journey wasn't just about building a new life, but about healing from the old one. One evening, after Ellie had fallen asleep, Alex invited Sophia over for dinner. It was the first time he had opened his home to her, and he couldn't help but feel a flicker of nervousness. The apartment wasn't much, a modest 2-bedroom, but it was warm and filled with Ellie's drawings and books, evidence of the life they were building together. Over candlelight and the soft strains of jazz, Sophia shared stories of her own. She had been through her own share of heartache, though hers had come not from marriage but from losing her father at a young age. "I think that's why I love seeing you with Ellie," she said, her voice soft. "The way you cherish her, it's rare. It's beautiful." Her words touched something deep within Alex. He realized then that he wasn't just moving forward for Ellie. He was learning how to embrace love and connection again, for himself. A question from Ellie. Perceptive, as always, began to notice Sophia's presence in their lives. One evening, as Alex tucked her into bed, she looked up at him with her wide, curious eyes. "Daddy, do you love Sophia?" The question caught him off guard. He hesitated, searching for the right words. "I think I do, sweetheart. But love is something we take time to understand. Sophia makes me happy, and she cares about you too. How do you feel about her?" Ellie thought for a moment, her little fingers twisting a strand of her hair. "She's nice. She always listens to me, and I like when she draws with me." Alex smiled, relief washing over him. "I'm glad you like her, Ellie. That's very important to me." Ellie snuggled into her blanket, a sleepy smile on her face. "I think she makes you happy, Daddy. And I like seeing you happy." As Alex kissed her forehead and turned off the light, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. Ellie, in her innocence, had given him the encouragement he didn't realize he needed. The proposal months later, on a crisp autumn evening, Alex and Sophia stood together beneath the same tree where they'd first begun to sketch side by side. The leaves, now fiery red and gold, swirled around them in the cool breeze. Alex held her hand, his heart pounding as he spoke. "Sophia, when I met you, I didn't think I'd ever find love again. I was just trying to rebuild, to be a good father, to make sense of the pieces of my life. But you brought something I didn't expect. You brought joy, peace, and hope." Sophia's eyes glistened with tears as she smiled at him. "You've been patient with me," Alex continued, "and you've been an amazing friend to Ellie. I don't know what the future holds, but I know this. I want to face it with you." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and knelt before her. "Sophia, will you marry me?" Her answer came in the form of a radiant smile and a whispered, "Yes." A new family. The wedding was a simple affair, held in the park beneath that same tree. Ellie played flower girl, scattering petals with joyful abandon as Alex and Sophia exchanged their vows. It wasn't just the start of a new chapter. It was the blending of lives, the creation of a new family bound by love, respect, and shared dreams. Ellie thrived in this new environment, her days filled with laughter and creativity. Sophia encouraged her artistic pursuits, while Alex continued to be the steadfast father she adored. Together, they created a home where love wasn't just spoken, it was shown in every little gesture and every shared moment. The legacy of love years later, on another Father's Day, Ellie, now a young woman, presented Alex with a painting. It depicted the tree from the park, its branches reaching wide and its roots anchoring it firmly in the ground. Beneath it, she had painted their family, Alex, Sophia, and herself, standing together in the shade. "I painted this for you, Dad," she said, her voice full of emotion, "because you've always been my tree, strong, steady, and always growing." Alex hugged her tightly, tears streaming down his face. He looked at Sophia, who smiled at him with the same warmth and love that had carried them through the years. As they stood together, the weight of his journey fell away, leaving only gratitude for the storms he had weathered, the growth he had achieved, and the family he had found in the sunlight that followed. The winds of change over time, Alex's relationship with Sophia deepened, not through grand gestures, but through the quiet, meaningful moments they shared. There was a peaceful rhythm to their connection. She never rushed him, understanding that his journey wasn't just about building a new life, but about healing from the old one. One evening, after Ellie had fallen asleep, Alex invited Sophia over for dinner. It was the first time he had opened his home to her, and he couldn't help but feel a flicker of nervousness. The apartment wasn't much, a modest two-bedroom, but it was warm and filled with Ellie's drawings and books, evidence of the life they were building together. Over candlelight and the soft strains of jazz, Sophia shared stories of her own. She had been through her own share of heartache, though hers had come not from marriage, but from losing her father at a young age. "I think that's why I love seeing you with Ellie," she said, her voice soft. "The way you cherish her, it's rare. It's beautiful." Her words touched something deep within Alex. He realized then that he wasn't just moving forward for Ellie. He was learning how to embrace love and connection again, for himself. A question from Ellie, perceptive, as always, began to notice Sophia's presence in their lives. One evening, as Alex tucked her into bed, she looked up at him with her wide, curious eyes. "Daddy, do you love Sophia?" The question caught him off guard. He hesitated, searching for the right words. "I think I do, sweetheart. But love is something we take time to understand. Sophia makes me happy, and she cares about you too. How do you feel about her?" Ellie thought for a moment, her little fingers twisting a strand of her hair. "She's nice. She always listens to me, and I like when she draws with me." Alex smiled, relief washing over him. "I'm glad you like her, Ellie. That's very important to me." Ellie snuggled into her blanket, a sleepy smile on her face. "I think she makes you happy, Daddy. And I like seeing you happy." As Alex kissed her forehead and turned off the light, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. Ellie, in her innocence, had given him the encouragement he didn't realize he needed. The proposal. Months later, on a crisp autumn evening, Alex and Sophia stood together beneath the same tree where they'd first begun to sketch side by side. The leaves, now fiery red and gold, swirled around them in the cool breeze. Alex held her hand, his heart pounding as he spoke. "Sophia, when I met you, I didn't think I'd ever find love again. I was just trying to rebuild, to be a good father, to make sense of the pieces of my life. But you brought something I didn't expect. You brought joy, peace, and hope." Sophia's eyes glistened with tears as she smiled at him. "You've been patient with me," Alex continued, "and you've been an amazing friend to Ellie. I don't know what the future holds, but I know this. I want to face it with you." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and knelt before her. "Sophia, will you marry me?" Her answer came in the form of a radiant smile and a whispered, "Yes." A new family. The wedding was a simple affair, held in the park beneath that same tree. Ellie played flower girl, scattering petals with joyful abandon as Alex and Sophia exchanged their vows. It wasn't just the start of a new chapter, it was the blending of lives, the creation of a new family bound by love, respect, and shared dreams. Ellie thrived in this new environment, her days filled with laughter and creativity. Sophia encouraged her artistic pursuits, while Alex continued to be the steadfast father she adored. Together, they created a home where love wasn't just spoken, it was shown, in every little gesture and every shared moment. The legacy of love years later, on another Father's Day, Ellie, now a young woman, presented Alex with a painting. It depicted the tree from the park, its branches reaching wide and its roots anchoring it firmly in the ground. Beneath it, she had painted their family, Alex, Sophia, and herself, standing together in the shade. "I painted this for you, Dad," she said, her voice full of emotion. "Because you've always been my tree, strong, steady, and always growing." Alex hugged her tightly, tears streaming down his face. He looked at Sophia, who smiled at him with the same warmth and love that had carried them through the years. As they stood together, the weight of his journey fell away, leaving only gratitude for the storms he had weathered, the growth he had achieved, and the family he had found in the sunlight that followed. Ellie's journey as Ellie grew older, her passion for art blossomed into a career. She attended a prestigious art school, earning accolades for her unique style, bold, emotional pieces that seemed to tell stories of resilience and love. Her professors often commented on the depth of her work, a reflection of the life she had lived and the lessons she had absorbed from her father and their journey together. Alex and Sophia attended every gallery opening, their pride evident in their beaming smiles. At one such event, Ellie unveiled a piece that took Alex's breath away. It was a large, vibrant painting of a tree, its branches intertwined with the sky, filled with golden light and surrounded by smaller trees that seemed to draw strength from its roots. "I call it the legacy," Ellie said during her speech. "It's inspired by my father, who taught me what it means to be strong, to grow, and to love unconditionally. This tree represents not just him, but the family we've built and the lessons he's passed down. It's my way of saying thank you." Alex's eyes filled with tears as the crowd applauded. He looked at Sophia, who squeezed his hand tightly, her own eyes shimmering. "She gets that talent from you," Alex whispered. "And that heart from you," Sophia replied with a smile. Father and daughter. Ellie moved into adulthood. Her bond with Alex only grew stronger. Even after she moved out and established her own life, they maintained their Sunday morning tradition, coffee and conversation, at the cafe where Alex and Sophia had first met. Ellie often sought his advice, whether about her career, relationships, or just life in general. One morning, as they sat together sipping their coffee, Ellie hesitated before speaking. "Dad, I've been thinking a lot about what you've taught me over the years, about love, respect, and knowing your worth." Alex smiled, his eyes softening. And I've met someone," she admitted, a shy smile tugging at her lips. Alex leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "Tell me about them." As Ellie spoke, Alex saw the same light in her eyes that he had seen in Sophia's years ago. It was a look of hope, excitement, and cautious optimism. He listened intently, offering encouragement and advice, but mostly just letting her talk, knowing how important it was for her to feel heard. "Dad," Ellie said, her voice turning serious, "I hope I can be half as brave as you were when you decided to start over. You showed me that love is worth fighting for, but it has to be the right kind of love, the kind that builds you up, not tears you down." Alex reached across the table and took her hand. "Ellie, you've always been brave, and you've always known your worth. Trust your heart. It hasn't let you down yet." A full circle. Years later, Alex found himself in the park again, beneath the same tree that had witnessed so many milestones in his life. But this time, he wasn't the focus. It was Ellie's wedding day, and she had chosen this spot for her ceremony, a place that had become a symbol of love, growth, and family. As Alex walked Ellie down the aisle, his heart swelled with pride and emotion. She was radiant, her smile bright and confident, a reflection of the strong, compassionate woman she had become. When they reached the altar, Ellie turned to him, her eyes brimming with tears. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered. "For everything. For being my tree." Alex kissed her forehead, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Ellie, for showing me how to grow." As he took his seat beside Sophia, he watched Ellie and her partner exchange vows, their love shining brightly for all to see. It was a bittersweet moment, but mostly it was a joyful one. Alex knew that this wasn't an ending. It was another beginning, a continuation of the legacy he had worked so hard to build. A life well. Lived in his later years, Alex often found himself sitting under that same tree, now older and grander, its branches spreading wider than ever. Sometimes he was joined by Sophia, sometimes by Ellie and her children, and sometimes he sat alone, reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. Life had not been easy, but it had been full of love, growth, and second chances. And as he watched his grandchildren play, their laughter ringing through the air, Alex knew that his story, though filled with its share of pain and struggle, was ultimately one of triumph. He had started over, he had grown, and in doing so, he had built a legacy rooted in love, a legacy that would continue to flourish long after he was gone. The next generation. As the years rolled on, Alex's legacy began to flourish in ways he had never imagined. Ellie had 3 children of her own, twins Mia and Ethan, and their younger sister Lily. They brought a whirlwind of energy, laughter, and chaos into Alex and Sophia's lives, turning every visit into an adventure. From the moment they were old enough to talk, the grandchildren were enchanted by Alex's stories. He became Papa Alex, the magical storyteller who could spin tales about brave knights, talking animals, and mysterious adventures. Every time they visited, they would pile onto the couch or sit under the big tree in the park, their wide eyes fixed on Alex as he wove his narratives. One day, while sitting under that familiar tree, Mia asked, "Papa Alex, how do you know so many stories?" Alex chuckled, his eyes twinkling. "Because I've lived a few of my own, sweetheart, and the best stories come from the things we learn along the way." Ethan, ever curious, tilted his head. "Did you ever fight dragons?" Alex grinned. "Oh, I've fought plenty of dragons. They didn't breathe fire, but they were just as scary. And you know what? I won every time, because I had something worth fighting for." "What was it?" Lily asked, her small hand clutching his. He smiled at her, his voice soft. "Love, family, and the chance to grow into the person I was meant to be." Passing the torch. As the grandchildren grew older, Ellie encouraged them to explore their artistic sides. Mia loved to paint, Ethan was fascinated by photography, and Lily had a gift for writing. Alex saw pieces of himself in each of them, the creativity, the curiosity, the drive to express themselves. One summer, Alex decided to share something special with them. He brought out an old, weathered journal filled with sketches, notes, and bits of stories he had written over the years. "This," he said, placing it on the table, "is my treasure chest. It's where I've kept all the pieces of my life, ideas, dreams, memories. And now, I want to share it with you." The children spent hours poring over the journal, their excitement contagious. Ethan snapped pictures of the sketches, Mia tried to recreate some of the drawings, and Lily began crafting a story based on one of Alex's unfinished ideas. By the end of the summer, they presented him with something that brought tears to his eyes, a handmade book titled Papa Alex's Legacy. It was a collection of their own creations, inspired by his journal and the stories he had shared with them. "This is amazing," Alex said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've taken my stories and made them your own. That's the greatest gift you could give me." A quiet goodbye. Years later, as Alex's hair turned silver and his steps grew, Slower, he found himself reflecting more often on the life he had built. He and Sophia had celebrated decades of marriage, their bond growing stronger with each passing year. Ellie's family thrived, her children carrying forward the lessons of love and resilience that Alex had worked so hard to instill. One crisp, autumn evening, Alex sat under the tree that had been a constant presence in his life. The leaves, golden and red, rustled in the breeze. Sophia joined him, her hand resting gently on his. "You've done so much, Alex," she said, her voice soft. "You've given us all so much." He smiled, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "I didn't do it alone. You've been my partner in all of this. I couldn't have done it without you." They sat in comfortable silence, the setting sun casting a warm glow over the park. Not long after, Alex passed peacefully, surrounded by his family. His final days were filled with love, laughter, and the knowledge that he had lived a life of purpose and meaning, a legacy of love. At Alex's memorial, Ellie stood before a crowd of friends and family, holding the handmade book her children had created years ago. "My father taught me many things," she began, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "He taught me how to be strong, how to grow, and how to love. But most of all, he taught me that our stories, our legacies, are what we leave behind for the people we care about. And my father's legacy is love. It's in this book, in this tree, and in all of us who were lucky enough to know him." The crowd listened intently as Ellie shared stories of Alex's life, his wisdom, and his unwavering dedication to his family. By the end, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. The tree in the park was later dedicated to Alex's memory, a plaque, placed at its base reading, "In loving memory of Alex, a father, husband, and storyteller who taught us all to grow, love, and dream." The story continues. Years after Alex's passing, his great-grandchildren played under the same tree, their laughter echoing through the park. They grew up hearing tales of Papa Alex, the man who had lived a life of courage and love, and they carried his lessons forward in their own lives. Generations of growth. As Alex's great-grandchildren grew older, the stories of Papa Alex became more than bedtime tales. They became guiding principles for how to navigate life's challenges. Each of them carried a piece of his legacy in unique ways, ensuring his spirit remained alive through their own paths. Mia, the visionary artist. Mia, Alex's eldest great-grandchild, grew into a renowned painter. Her works, inspired by nature and family, often featured vibrant trees with intertwined branches, a nod to the tree that symbolized her great-grandfather's life. In interviews, she spoke openly about how Alex's resilience and wisdom influenced her art. One of her most celebrated pieces, titled Roots of Love, was a sprawling mural that adorned the walls of a community center in their hometown. It depicted a massive tree surrounded by people of all ages and backgrounds, their hands connected to its roots. At the mural's unveiling, Mia spoke to the crowd. "This tree represents all of us, connected by love, by stories, and by the strength of those who came before us. My great-grandfather taught me that no matter how broken life may seem, growth is always possible. And this mural is my way of honoring him." Ethan, the keeper of memories. Ethan, ever the photographer, became a documentarian with a focus on capturing stories of resilience. His first major project was a documentary about Alex's life, weaving together interviews with family members, old photographs, and his own reflections on the lessons he had learned. The film, titled Beneath the Tree, a story of strength and renewal, premiered at a local film festival and quickly gained national attention for its heartfelt portrayal of a man who had turned pain into purpose. In the documentary, Ethan narrated, "Papa Alex taught me that life is like photography. It's not about avoiding the shadows, It's about finding the light within them. His story isn't just his, it's ours. And it's a reminder that every storm can nurture growth. The film's success allowed Ethan to travel the world, documenting stories of individuals and communities overcoming adversity. Everywhere he went, he carried a small photo of the tree, a personal talisman that reminded him of his great-grandfather's unwavering strength. Lily, the storyteller. Lily, the youngest of Alex's great-grandchildren, inherited his love for storytelling. She became an author, her novels exploring themes of family, healing, and transformation. Her debut book, The Tree in the Park, became an international bestseller. The novel told the fictionalized story of a young girl who, guided by the wisdom of her grandfather, learns to rebuild her life after a tragedy. In interviews, Lily often credited Alex as her greatest inspiration. Papa Alex didn't just tell stories, he lived them. He showed me that every challenge is just a chapter, and every chapter is part of a greater story. Writing this book felt like a conversation with him, even though he's no longer here. Lily's works resonated with readers around the world, many of whom wrote to her, sharing how her stories had helped them navigate their own struggles. She made it her mission to continue Alex's legacy, using her words to inspire others to grow and heal. The annual gathering. As the years passed, Alex's family established an annual tradition, a gathering beneath the tree in the park. Every Father's Day, 4 generations of his descendants came together to celebrate his life and the lessons he had passed down. The day was filled with laughter, stories, and creative activities. Mia led painting workshops for the children. Ethan captured candid moments with his camera, and Lily read excerpts from her latest work. At the center of it all was the tree, now towering and majestic, its branches spreading wide like the arms of a loving guardian. Ellie, now a grandmother herself, often stood back and watched the scene with a heart full of pride and gratitude. She knew her father would have been overjoyed to see the legacy he had created, a family rooted in love, thriving together. A letter from the past. One year, during the Father's Day gathering, Ellie presented something extraordinary. A letter Alex had written shortly before his passing, sealed in an envelope marked, "To my family for the future." With trembling hands, Ellie read the letter aloud. "My dearest family, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer with you in body, but I am always with you in spirit. Life is a series of storms and sunrises, and I've been blessed to experience both. The storms taught me strength, the sunrises gave me hope, and through it all, my greatest joy has been watching our family grow, thrive, and carry forward the lessons I've learned. Remember this: you are stronger than you know, and love is the greatest gift you can give and receive. Take care of one another. Support each other's dreams." M. to Gier. Echoes of the Tree, a global legacy. As the years turned into decades, the impact of Alex's story extended far beyond his family. The annual gatherings beneath the tree in the park became well known in the community, and soon, people from the town began to visit, drawn by the story of resilience, love, and growth. Schools brought students to learn about the tree's symbolism, and artists and writers often came to find inspiration under its sprawling branches. Mia, Ethan, and Lily took it upon themselves to ensure their great-grandfather's legacy continued. To inspire others, together they founded an organization called Roots of Renewal, dedicated to helping individuals and families rebuild their lives after hardships. Roots of Renewal, spreading hope. The organization's mission was simple yet profound: to plant trees in communities around the world as symbols of strength and renewal, while offering programs in art therapy, storytelling workshops, and mental health support. Each tree planted came with a plaque that read, "A tree is a testament to life's resilience. Like roots weathering storms, we can grow through anything, reaching for the light." Mia spearheaded the artistic side of the initiative, designing murals and sculptures for the communities where they planted trees. Ethan used his photography and filmmaking skills to document the stories of the people they helped, creating powerful films that inspired viewers worldwide. Lily conducted writing workshops, helping participants turn their pain into stories of hope. Their work gained international recognition, earning them awards and invitations to speak at conferences. Despite their global reach, they always returned to the tree in the park on Father's Day, grounding themselves in the roots of their own story. A story that never ends. One particularly meaningful moment came when Ethan traveled to a small village devastated by a natural disaster. The villagers had lost nearly everything, but they had begun to rebuild, drawing strength from each other. Ethan worked with them to plant a tree at the center of the village, and he shared Alex's story during the dedication ceremony. An elderly villager approached him afterward, tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she said. "Your grandfather's story reminds us that even after the hardest storms, life goes on. This tree will remind us to keep growing." When Ethan returned home and shared the experience with Mia and Lily, they knew their work was making a difference. It wasn't just about honoring Alex anymore, it was about spreading his message to the world. The fifth generation. By the time Alex's great-great-grandchildren were born, his story had become a cherished family legend. They grew up hearing about the man who had transformed pain into purpose, whose love had planted the roots of a family that continued to grow and thrive. One sunny afternoon, Ellie, now a great-grandmother, sat beneath the tree with her great-grandchildren. She told them the story of their great-great-grandfather Alex, how he had faced heartbreak on a Father's Day long ago, but had chosen to rebuild his life with love and strength. "Why was he so strong?" asked little Noah, the youngest of the group. Ellie smiled, her eyes twinkling with both sadness and joy. "Because he believed that no matter what happens, we can always grow. He taught us that our roots, the love and lessons we share, make us stronger than any storm." The children listened intently, their wide eyes filled with wonder. To them, Alex was more than a person. He was a symbol of what it meant to live a meaningful life. The everlasting legacy. In the twilight of her life, Ellie made one final addition to the tree in the park. She commissioned a bench to be placed beneath its branches, inscribed with the words, "Sit here and let the stories of this tree remind you of life's resilience, love's power, and the beauty of growth." When Ellie passed, her family gathered beneath the tree to celebrate her life. They shared stories, laughed, and cried, just as they had done for Alex years before. They planted a second tree nearby, creating a grove that symbolized the enduring strength of their family. A global network of trees' generations. Later, Alex's descendants continued the work of Roots of Renewal, which had grown into a global movement. Millions of trees now stood as living monuments to resilience, each one tied back to the original tree in the park. Visitors from around the world came to see the place where it all began, sitting on the bench beneath the branches and finding comfort in its shade. One such visitor, a young woman struggling with her own challenges, sat on the bench and read the inscription. As she looked up at the tree, she felt a spark of hope, as though the stories it had witnessed were reaching out to her, reminding her that she too could grow through anything. The traveler and the tree one quiet afternoon, years after the centennial celebration, a woman named Amelia arrived at the Forest of Hope. She was a wanderer, someone who had spent much of her life moving from place to place, searching for something she couldn't quite name. Recently divorced and burdened with regret over the choices she had made, Amelia felt lost, adrift in the wake of her own storm. She had heard of the Forest of Hope from a friend who had described it as a place where you'll find pieces of yourself. Intrigued and desperate for clarity, Amelia decided to see it for herself. As she stepped into the grove, She was struck by the overwhelming sense of peace that seemed to radiate from the trees. Their towering forms stretched skyward, their roots intertwined in the earth, creating a living network that whispered of unity and endurance. Amelia wandered from tree to tree, reading the plaques at their bases. Each one told a story, a family that had rebuilt after tragedy, a community that had come together after a natural disaster, an individual who had found strength in their darkest hour. The stories were deeply personal yet universal, echoing themes of loss, resilience, and renewal. Finally, she came to the original tree. Its trunk was thick and gnarled with age, its branches spreading wide like open arms. At its base was the bench Alex's family had placed there so many years ago. Amelia sat down, running her fingers over the inscription. "Sit here and let the stories of this tree remind you of life's resilience, love's power, and the beauty of growth." For a long time, Amelia sat in silence, her heart heavy with her own pain. Then, as the wind rustled through the leaves, she felt something shift within her. It was as if the tree itself was speaking to her, reminding her that she, too, could weather her storm and grow stronger because of it. A note left behind. Before Amelia left the grove, she pulled out a small notebook from her bag and wrote a note. She folded it carefully and tucked it into a small hollow in the tree's trunk. It read, "To whoever finds this, I came here lost, unsure of who I was or where I was going. But sitting beneath this tree, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. If you're reading this, I want you to know that no matter what you're facing, you're not alone. Life is hard, but we are stronger than we think. Keep going. You'll find your way. Amelia." The Found. Note months later. A teenager named Liam, who had been struggling with depression, visited the Forest of Hope with his parents. While exploring the grove, he spotted the folded note in the hollow of the tree. Curious, he opened it and read Amelia's words. Something about the note resonated deeply with him. He felt seen, as if Amelia's message had been written just for him. For the first time in a long while, Liam believed that he could find his way out of the darkness. He showed the note to his parents, who were moved to tears. Together, they decided to write their own notes and leave them in other trees throughout the grove, hoping to inspire others as Amelia had inspired them. A new tradition. Over time, leaving notes in the Forest of Hope became a tradition. Visitors from around the world added their own messages of hope, resilience, and encouragement, tucking them into the trees. Some were letters of gratitude for the strength they had found. Others were words of support for those who would come after them. The grove became a living repository of humanity's collective resilience. People who felt alone found comfort in the knowledge that others had walked similar paths. The network of notes, like the roots of the trees, created connections that spanned continents and generations. A legacy that keeps growing. Many years later, a group of children visiting the grove discovered a plaque beneath the original tree, newly added by Alex's descendants. It read, "This tree stands as proof that one person's choice to heal can inspire the world. Its roots carry our stories, its branches reach for the future, and its shade welcomes all who seek comfort. May its legacy remind you that growth is always possible." The children, curious about the man who had started it all, asked their teacher about Alex. She told them his story of heartbreak, resilience, and the decision to rebuild his life after being humiliated on a Father's Day long ago. The children listened with wide-eyed wonder, inspired by how one man's choice to grow had blossomed into a global movement. The never-ending story. Alex's story, though it began with pain, became a beacon of hope for countless lives. The forest of hope continued to grow, its trees spreading across the world, each one a testament to the enduring power of resilience and love. And though Alex was no longer alive, his legacy lived on, not just in his family, but in the hearts of all who found strength beneath the trees. The visitors who came and stayed. As the years went by, the Forest of Hope became not just a place to visit, but a destination that beckoned those in search of renewal. More than a symbolic grove, it transformed into a sanctuary, a refuge where people came to reconnect with themselves, to heal, or to find the courage to take the next step in their lives. Among those who visited, some stayed, finding in the forest more than just trees and stories. They found new homes, new communities, and new purposes. The Restorer. Maria's story. Maria had come to the Forest of Hope with little intention of staying. She was a healer by profession, a therapist who had spent years helping others rebuild their lives after trauma, but who herself felt fragmented and worn down by her own personal struggles. When she arrived at the grove, she hadn't known what to expect, only that she needed to step away from the noise of her life and find some peace. Her first moments under the tree were filled with quiet reflection. She had heard the stories of Alex and his family, and somehow they resonated deeply with her. Maria found herself returning to the Forest of Hope day after day. She began sitting beneath the branches of the trees, reading the notes left behind by strangers, and eventually writing her own, letters to herself, notes of hope, and messages of forgiveness. One afternoon, as she sat writing, an older man approached her. He sat beside her without a word, and after a long pause, he shared his story. He had lost his wife and child in an accident many years ago and had come to the forest in search of solace. Over the course of several visits, they began talking, sharing their own experiences of pain and recovery. Gradually, Maria realized she had come to the place for healing not just for herself, but for others as well. She began offering free therapy, sessions in the park, creating a small space for those who came to the forest to talk. As more people joined her, the idea of opening a community-based center for healing began to take shape. Eventually, Maria started an organization called Restorers of the Spirit, dedicated to offering free therapeutic support to individuals and families in need. The center was built near the grove, with its walls adorned with photographs of the trees and plaques commemorating the strength and growth of the people who had come before. Maria never left the forest. It became her home, and over time, the people who visited and sought healing became her family. The center and the forest were intertwined, both serving as sanctuaries for those who needed to rebuild. Maria knew that, just like the trees, people could be restored, not back to what they once were, but to something more resilient and capable of growth. A new family, the Montoya's journey. Juan and Elena Montoya arrived at the Forest of Hope one autumn afternoon, looking for something they could not put into words. They had been struggling with the loss of their only child, Javier, who had passed away unexpectedly a year earlier. The grief had nearly torn their family apart, and though they loved each other deeply, they had not known how to heal from the immense sorrow they carried. Their first visit to the grove was tentative. At first, the trees seemed too quiet, too still. They had heard about the forest and its healing properties, but the reality of standing before the grand tree felt overwhelmingly heavy. Yet, as they sat on the bench near the base of the original tree, something shifted. There was a deep, palpable sense of peace. It was as though the stories of resilience shared in the grove had begun to settle into their hearts. On their second visit, Juan and Elena met a woman named Lucy, who had come to the forest with her own grief. She had lost a spouse and found solace in the tree's whispers of healing. Over the course of weeks, the Montoyas spent more time with Lucy, learning that grief could be shared, carried, and ultimately transformed. With her encouragement, they joined a support group held beneath the trees, a gathering for parents who had lost children. Here they shared their stories, found compassion, and began to understand that grief, while powerful, was not a final destination. Months passed, and slowly, the Montoyas began to heal. Not by forgetting, but by learning to live with their sorrow, allowing it to be part of them rather than something that defined them. One day, they decided to leave a plaque beneath the hay. Original tree. It read, "For our son, Javier. Though you are no longer with us, we carry your love in our hearts. May this tree always remind us that life, even after loss, can continue to grow." As time went on, Juan and Elena became regulars at the forest. They planted a sapling near the original tree, marking the beginning of their journey of renewal. Eventually, they became stewards of the grove, organizing community events and supporting newcomers who came seeking peace, just as they had. The Seeds of Tomorrow, a global movement. As the years unfolded, the legacy of the Forest of Hope spread far beyond its original grove. The concept of planting trees as symbols of resilience, love, and healing resonated with people from diverse cultures and backgrounds. What began as a local initiative grew into a global movement, the legacy of roots. People from all walks of life came together to plant trees in their communities, creating a vast network of groves that spanned continents, each rooted in the shared values of strength, growth, and interconnectedness. The movement wasn't just about planting trees, it was about planting hope. It was about people coming together to support one another, to build each other up, and to heal through shared stories. In every grove around the world, plaques were placed beneath the trees, inscribed with messages of hope and resilience, stories of triumph, of overcoming hardship, and of the unwavering human spirit. A moment in the Arctic. The healing tree. One of the most moving moments in the Legacy of Roots movement came from a small indigenous community in the Arctic Circle. The people of this remote village had faced decades of environmental hardships, including shrinking ice caps, changing wildlife patterns, and the loss of traditional ways of life. They had been struggling to hold on to their culture and identity in the face of a changing world. When they heard about the Forest of Hope and the movement Alex had started, they felt a deep connection to the idea of planting trees as symbols of strength. Despite the harsh conditions, the community decided to plant a tree in the heart of their village, a tree that would endure through the cold, survive the long winters, and stand as a reminder of their resilience. With the support of Roots of Renewal, a special breed of tree was sourced, one that could thrive in the extreme cold. The village gathered on a crisp winter day to plant the tree, and during the ceremony, the elders shared stories of their ancestors, their traditions, and their deep respect for nature. A plaque was placed beside the tree that read, "In the face of change, we remain rooted. Our traditions, like these roots, run deep. We are the keepers of the land, and we will continue to grow with it." The tree, against all odds, flourished. It became a powerful symbol for the village, a living testament to their resilience and their determination to preserve their culture in an ever-changing world. The Legacy of Roots. A growing network. In the bustling streets of Tokyo, a grove of cherry blossoms was planted in the heart of a city park, dedicated to those who had lost loved ones in the 2011 tsunami. The community gathered each year to honor the lives lost and celebrate the strength of those who had rebuilt their lives from the devastation. The cherry trees bloomed each spring, a stunning reminder of the beauty that could emerge after tragedy. In a village in the hills of Nepal, a grove of pine trees was planted by the survivors of the 2015 earthquake. The trees were placed near the school where children had once studied in fear, but now could once again learn in peace. Each tree had been planted in memory of those who had perished, and it became a place where future generations would come to reflect on the power of hope and the importance of community. In South Africa, an indigenous tribe planted a grove of baobab trees, symbolizing their enduring connection to the land. The trees became a meeting place for the community, where elders passed down stories to younger generations, ensuring that the wisdom of the past would always be shared and preserved. All over the world, communities embraced the idea of roots of renewal, planting trees that told their stories and celebrated their shared resilience. The trees themselves became a living history, each leaf a page in the book of humanity's triumphs over adversity. A global celebration, the Day of Roots. As the Legacy of Roots movement gained momentum, an annual event was established, the Day of Roots. On this day, people from all corners of the globe came together to plant trees, share stories, and honor the resilience of the human spirit. It became a day of unity, where communities connected across cultural and geographical boundaries to celebrate life, growth, and renewal. The Day of Roots was celebrated with festivals, ceremonies, and gatherings. Schools held storytelling sessions, where children shared tales of resilience and hope, while adults planted trees in their backyards, in parks, or in communal spaces. The event was broadcast live, with people from around the world participating and sharing their stories, creating a global tapestry of hope. At the heart of it all, the original tree in the Forest of Hope stood as a central symbol. On the Day of Roots, a special ceremony was held there, with Alex's descendants, now a large family with members from every corner of the world. The Enduring Roots, a new chapter. As the years passed, the legacy of Roots continued to unfold, bringing new stories, new communities, and new forms of healing. The movement had grown into a worldwide celebration of life's ability to persevere, no matter the circumstances, and its influence reached even the most unexpected places. The connection across continents, the tale of two women. In the heart of Brazil, in the dense Amazon rainforest, a woman named Ana had heard of the legacy of Roots through a letter that had traveled across continents. Ana, a biologist who had dedicated her life to protecting the natural world, was captivated by the idea that planting trees could symbolize not just ecological restoration, but personal renewal. Ana had spent much of her life caring for the Amazon, but she felt disconnected from the people whose lives it touched. She wanted to understand how the trees could be used to heal not just the land, but also the hearts of the people who lived there. Across the globe, in the bustling city of Cairo, Layla, a writer and historian, had heard a similar call. Layla had lived through years of political unrest and had witnessed the division and scars left by conflict. Yet she had always believed in the power of stories to unite and heal. When she came across an article about the legacy of Roots, she was moved by the possibility of combining the power of trees with the healing power of shared narratives. She believed that stories could be the bridge to mending not only historical wounds, but the fractured connections between people. Ana and Layla began to correspond, sharing their thoughts on how the trees could be a vessel for healing in their respective communities. They decided to embark on a collaborative project to bring the legacy of Roots to their people, Ana focusing on the ecological importance of trees, and Layla working to craft stories that celebrated resilience and unity. Their project took root in the form of a special grove. In Brazil, Ana organized the planting of a vast network of trees in the heart of the Amazon. Each tree was dedicated to a specific story of personal triumph. Tales of survivors of natural disasters, environmental activists, and individuals who had dedicated their lives to the preservation of the forest. As the trees were planted, Layla's words accompanied them, stories inscribed on plaques that told of strength, courage, and hope in the face of adversity. In Cairo, Layla worked with local communities to plant a grove of olive trees, each one standing as a symbol of peace, unity, and historical reconciliation. The olive tree, a symbol deeply embedded in Egyptian culture, was chosen to represent the ability of communities to heal after periods of conflict. Layla's stories were engraved on each tree, recounting the triumphs of individuals who had lived through war and division, but had emerged with a deep belief in the power of connection and forgiveness. The project brought people together from Different cultures, backgrounds, and generations, united by the common belief that hope could be rooted in the earth and nurtured through shared stories. As the groves grew, they became living monuments to resilience, places where people could come together to remember their shared history, celebrate their survival, and plant the seeds of a more hopeful future. The Garden of Healing. The Urban Initiative. In a city far from the Amazon or Cairo, in the midst of towering skyscrapers and the hum of urban life, another facet of the legacy of Roots began to take shape. In New York City, a group of urban planners and social activists, inspired by the movement, sought to bring the healing power of nature to those who needed it most. They worked to transform vacant lots and abandoned spaces into lush, green gardens where people could find peace amidst the chaos of city life. These urban gardens became sanctuaries for those suffering from the mental toll of living in a fast-paced, high-stress environment. The initiative focused on planting a variety of trees and plants that would thrive in the city's climate. The gardens became community spaces where people could gather to reflect, write their stories, and share their experiences. They were places of solace and connection where individuals from all walks of life could plant their own seeds of hope. One garden in particular became famous for its central feature, a large oak tree that had been there long before the garden was created. The tree, which had once stood in isolation, now flourished in the heart of a vibrant community. Plaques with handwritten stories from visitors were placed around its base, each one contributing to the narrative of resilience that had taken root in the urban landscape. As the legacy of Roots spread, more and more cities across the globe adopted the concept of urban gardens as healing spaces. From Los Angeles to Mumbai, from Paris to Mexico City, people planted trees and created gardens, a return to the original grove. The full circle years. Into the flourishing of the legacy of Roots, there came a time when Alex's descendants gathered at the original grove, the Forest of Hope, for a special occasion. The world had changed in ways unimaginable when Alex first planted the seed of renewal, but the essence of what he had started remained intact. Now his grandchildren and great-grandchildren, each shaped by the legacy of resilience, healing, and growth, returned to the heart of the movement to honor the past and to envision the future. The gathering of generations. Mia, now a respected storyteller in her own right, stood at the base of the original tree where Alex had once found peace. She had spent her life traveling the world, learning from the communities touched by the legacy of Roots and collecting stories that would be passed down to future generations. Ethan, ever the advocate for ecological restoration, had become a renowned environmentalist, working to create green spaces in urban areas that mirrored the community gardens established in cities across the globe. Lily, whose passion for history and culture had inspired many, had devoted her career to preserving the stories of the Forest of Hope and the way they had intertwined with the world's shared history of survival and strength. Together, they stood under the vast branches of the tree that had symbolized their family's journey from a place of sorrow to a beacon of hope. Their children, now young adults, stood beside them, eager to carry the torch forward. Each generation had added a new layer to the legacy, and now they had come full circle. The tree had not only witnessed the passage of time, but it had borne witness to the transformation of a family and a movement that had transcended its origins. The family gathered around the tree and placed a plaque at its base, a new one, crafted from polished stone, with a simple inscription that read, "In honor of Alex, whose strength and love gave life to a movement that continues to grow. May this tree always stand as a reminder that from the deepest pain, we find the roots of hope." A special ceremony, the planting of the future. But it wasn't just about honoring the past. This gathering was also about planting the seeds for the future. Alex's great-grandchildren, who had grown up surrounded by the stories of their ancestors, were ready to contribute to the legacy of Roots in their own unique way. As the family stood beneath the original tree, each of the younger generation stepped forward to plant a new sapling. These saplings, small but full of promise, were symbols of the continuation of the movement, a living, breathing extension of everything Alex had started. One of the youngest, a spirited girl named Isabella, who had heard the stories of her great-grandfather from her father, planted a seedling of a tree that symbolized unity. She believed in a world where differences were celebrated and embraced. As she placed the sapling into the soil, she whispered a prayer for a world where every person, regardless of where they came from, could find their roots and grow together. Her brother, Matteo, chose a tree that symbolized resilience, a sturdy oak that would stand firm no matter the storms it faced. He had grown up with a deep appreciation for the strength that trees symbolized, how their roots held them steady, even as the winds of life blew fiercely. Matteo's tree, he hoped, would stand as a beacon for others to find the courage to endure, no matter what life threw at them. As each sapling was planted, the family came together in a circle, holding hands around the trees they had chosen. It was a powerful moment, a reminder that the legacy of roots was not a solitary journey, but a collective one. The future was in their hands, and the strength of the trees that had come before them would guide them forward. The legacy beyond. The family. Though Alex's family had returned to honor his vision, the true beauty of the legacy of roots was in its continued growth beyond any one family or community. The original grove had long become a global network, a garden of healing that spanned continents, uniting people from every corner of the world. As new generations stepped into the fold, they added their own stories, and the roots of the trees extended farther, intertwining with the legacies of countless others. From the forest of hope in the heart of the original grove, to the urban gardens in the cities, to the remote groves planted by indigenous peoples, each community contributed to the living history of the movement. The groves were a mosaic of stories, of loss, triumph, grief, healing, and hope. And as each new person planted a tree or shared their tale beneath the canopy of those ever-growing branches, they became a part of something much larger than themselves. One day, a visitor from a distant land, a woman from a small village in the mountains of Tibet, came to the original grove.